Where do I begin? Don't you love this church? Isn't it fabulous to see how sparkling it is? I'd like to speak about the Fatima history, because we can't forget this history on a night like tonight. But I would like to anchor our thoughts in the words of the angel Gabriel to Mary. He said, "Nothing will be impossible to God." That is truly the story of Notre Dame de Fatima. Lots of highs and lows, obstacles overcome, victories in the end. Also, I'd like to think about those beautiful Latin words, which are the oblate inscription, Evangelizare pauperibus misit me. He has sent me to bring the good news to the poor. Fatima loves the poor. It's always been, excuse me, people in North Coquitlam living up that rich mountain, but we've been the blue-collar group down here, and we have looked after the poor. I'd like to talk firstly about the church itself, because this is a night where we're thinking about this magnificent, iconic building. The church itself was created in controversy. It was a burgeoning French-Canadian community, and the decision was made to create the new second French community, not without controversies. And then a big door-to-door campaign to raise funds for this building to be built. So we think of all those wonderful, generous souls, many of whom who have gone before us that succeeded in building the church in 1958. Mr. Usman was the architect. I heard this all from Jean Lambert, so I'm telling you the truth. So he was architect for three great triplet churches, we'll call them. One of them just like the other. The first one, Notre Dame de Fatima, 1958. Then the second one, Our Lady of Good Counsel, built by a French-Canadian pastor who was going to make it the Cathedral of Surrey. The third one, Corpus Christi. The three churches are kind of carbon copies of each other. And, you know, we have the beautiful terrazzo floor. John told me it was so protected by the first pastors, you had to wear slippers, you know, those pixie slippers, on the floor so you wouldn't scuff the gorgeous floor. We have the California Mission style on the north side. We have the famous south side, with the red was supposed to refer to the blood of Christ being the body of Christ shedding its blood for our salvation. And of course, Father Scott's windows, I would need a whole other homily to talk about these windows. The worst thing about the windows is Father Scott was always looking down at me because he's the image for the Apostle Thomas. Merci, Père Scott. So we also have don't forget the bas-reliefs. These are so rare, so unique. The bas-relief of Our Lady of Fatima with her three children over here with the oblate motto. And then we have outside the Sacred Heart. Sometimes we forget to look at that, but they're beautiful, very unusual artwork. And remember when Father Scott took down those magnificent Christmas tree lights in the sanctuary, and he had the big mural painted, the very dramatic mural of the light shining forth from the cross. People said when they first walked into the church, "Oh, this is where the rich French are living, on this side of Blue Mountain Street, because they got those big doors. That's where the rich people are." I want to honor tonight the 5 religious orders that have been here over the years. When I was about to leave in 2010 and left in 2011, we had 5 maple trees planted. And I always said those are for the 5 religious congregations attached to Fatima. Of course, the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, our founding pastors, many amazing men that serve this community. From the Lacombe province, Father George can correct me, we have 1 oblate with us here tonight, our 1 priestly vocation, Father George Lagrange, OMI. So then we have the Sisters of the Child Jesus. They were here for a very short time. Père Meunier, the founding pastor, was a terror. People shook and trembled when he walked into the room. So he managed to cajole the Sisters of the Child Jesus here to start the school. It was so awful, they had to do the cleaning of the floors, cleaning of the classrooms. They were worn out and they couldn't stay. They were just beat. So thank you, Sisters of the Child Jesus, who of course are nearby in Our Lady of Lourdes in their provincial house. Then we have the Mother Fitzpatrick community, les Sœurs du Bon Pasteur de la Ville de Québec, and the beginning of the girls' high school at Fatima. I bet you a lot here tonight do not know we had the girls' high school here run by the Sisters of the Good Shepherd from Quebec City. Why? Because we had the boys at STM, we needed a girls' high school over here. Then we had later in the 60s and 70s, Les Sœurs de Sainte-Croix, Sisters of the Holy Cross from the prairies, who kept our school going. In leaner times, we didn't have quite so many numbers, but they were very beloved sisters. And more recently, since 1987, the sisters in front of me, Sisters of the Immaculate Heart, founded by Bishop Walsh. Did you know their founder was imprisoned in Red China? JFK interceded on becoming president that he would be released. So they are a community attached to Bishop Walsh, and an amazing community for us to have here, purchasing the rectory of the Oblate Fathers with the Montessori school. We've had amazing happenings through the sisters. I want to describe what it's like to arrive in Fatima. Imagine a great big blender and you throw in all these cultures. So then you put the blender on high and it goes at 100 miles an hour. The French community, the English community, the Chinese community, the Filipino community, the Korean community, the Latino, and we cannot forget the Italians who had their little involvement here over the years. Let's talk about the French. Le Scoutisme. Where would Fatima have been without the founding of the French Scouting movement? This was not looked upon with approval by the then Archbishop Duke, a very English, New Brunswick Archbishop transplanted to Vancouver. So we had this wonderful movement for our youth from the Scouting movement, who formed our current mayor of Coquitlam, Mayor Richard Stewart. We have here the beginnings on this site, Le Festival du Bois, the largest cultural festival in BC, started here. We had groups like Les Dames de Sainte-Anne, Les Chevaliers de l'Autel. The altar boys were knights of the altar. The ladies were Sisters of St. Anne. And we had great characters, just a few that I'd like to name. Of course, Jean Lambert, Albert Lagrange, our favorite violin maker in Coquitlam, Frenchie Adalmar Gaudet. Father George Lagrange is the son of Albert Lagrange. Father George, by the way, met Pope John Paul in Fort Simpson, Northwest Territories, when he flew in to greet the First Nations there when he couldn't go in 1984. We were very proud in Millardville of our local vocation meeting Pope John Paul to represent the clergy of Canada. We have couples like Bart and Celia Charpentier, Zenon, and Madame Albert. It goes on and on. We have so many. Then we add the English, which was a growing element in Fatima to the point that the school had to grow to double in size to include the English stream. We have the Chinese community growing, the arrival of the sisters, as I said, and the Mass now at least twice a month here in Our Lady of Fatima in Chinese. We had various Chinese New Year's celebrations with the Malaysian Chinese, with David Ho organizing those events. We had in the past, in my time, 3 major Filipino fundraisers organized by Cora Rufy and friends. We now have a strong Filipino presence with the pastor and the sisters here, servants of the Virgin Mary. And we have also had Korean events that were also fundraisers. We can't forget the Latino community. We had Baila Conmigo. We have Las Posadas, a Christmas tradition where you go around and knock on the doors, Joseph and Mary looking for a place for the baby to be born. So all that in a blender makes this place a very dynamic and exciting and dramatic place. I want to honor tonight the commitment of this community to Catholic education. So this has to be remembered. Our preschool here, started by Madame Irène Bouvier, was many, many years ago, continued by Lorraine Couture, Diane Padovan, and Viola Punchak in recent years. Of course, we have the French Scouting movement, which is, of course, a great form of education. Lots of events, lots of awards, national awards to our French Scouting community, to the leaders. We've had a strong youth presence over the years. Debbie and Richard over there, they can remember. But Linder in recent years. And there was something called Search here at one time. The school, of course, Our Lady of Fatima School has been always very supported and helped by the parish. In my time, the addition of the 2 portables for the music room and now the preschool. But also at the secondary level, we were one of the founding parishes to pay for and construct Archbishop Carney's secondary in the 3 phases of construction. Plus, we have tuition assistance. We have tuition assistance to STM as well. We cannot forget, speaking of education, the presence of many seminarians here over the years, especially the late 60s and 70s. The Kidwell brothers, all of the Brunos, Bashir Abraham. We now have 3 religious brothers at the monastery in Mission, Brother Joseph, Brother Bartholomew, Brother John, all of the Bruno family. We cannot leave tonight's thoughts without thinking about Father Scott. The drama of Father Scott. There was nothing but drama with him wherever he was, whatever he was doing. It was very exciting, especially when he arrived. The rectory had been sold. He had the little house here, 315 Walker, no furniture, nothing. He went down to St. Vincent de Paul, got his furniture for the house for free, and it was an interesting time. He was the first diocesan priest in 1987 to come here to take over from the Oblates. So it was a very sad loss to lose those fathers. there were many oblates here at one time. There were religious brothers as well as priests here. So Father Scott arrived. He moved the Mass back into the church. The daily Mass, you might remember, it was held, I'm trying to remember, I think it was down in it might have been in what we call the library, I think downstairs there. So we have him here. People prayed that he would eventually get help, and Deacon Guy Deleone came to help Father Scott. It was a great blessing. That was the year before I came, 1996. So Deacon Guy and Hélène became kind of the father and mother of our French community, an amazing couple of heroic dedication who had served up in the north. We have under Father Scott the arrival of Cursillo, which was a big story of Fatima. So Father Scott, he created energy around him, and Cursillo arrived here to Fatima. That became a big energy booster, lots of events, the men's Cursillo, the women's Cursillo, and lots of very wonderful happenings using our facilities for a retreat kind of center. I'd like to think of the grounds of Our Lady of Fatima, these amazing grounds, and the gardening committee we've had over the years with Shirley and Jim Ryan, Sharon and John Plesha and company. Also Christine Legal, she started the environmental committee to save on the waste and to be environmentally minded, which is wonderful. I'd like to think of the organizations here, especially the Knights of Columbus. Father Scott began them here because it was only at Lourdes before. The CWL, we had some great characters here. Arfa van Berkel in previous decades in the 70s. We had Madame Boyer trying to keep the CWL alive, and it kind of petered out. But other things kind of have filled the gap. St. Vincent de Paul. Fatima's St. Vincent de Paul is an amazing group, especially for the care for the elderly. The beautiful annual dinner and the hampers, amazing work of charity. Evangelizzare pauperibus misit me. He sent me to bring good news to the poor. Who are more poor than our seniors, especially in this time of COVID? I'd like to remember our parish here as a place of music, an amazing musical center that Fatima has been over the years. Whether we think of Evelyn Christie and her little choir group, I think they were Les Petits Chanteurs or a little name like that. We had the rock masses of Fatima. Everybody will remember that. Peter Allen and the rock mass on Saturday night. An amazing happening. We had Joan and John West for many years running the 10:30. Our piano is donated in Joan West's memory. Tammy Camuzzi and Shelley Halliday at the 10 o'clock. At 5 o'clock on Sundays, Monique Bisson, her father Bob Bisson, Gary and Bernice Hopping, Anne Millard and Tate. Wonderful musical group. And the 5 p.m. with Fernando playing tonight and Linder. Wonderful musical groups. It's so rich and so vibrant, something that we can never forget. I'd like to just end thinking about some of the fundraisers with this great charity of Fatima. I think of the tsunami that happened in the Indian Ocean. We had that big tsunami dinner organized by the Lodewijks, but many fundraising events, especially with our new Asian communities at Fatima, to support always the tuition assistance program at Fatima School. I remember very fondly Father Scott and myself, Rob Wood, and Deacon Guy going blonde. In the year 2000, we did a fundraiser and we had our hair dyed blonde during the banquet to celebrate the brightness of the new millennium. Many Chinese New Years, many Hispanic events, you name it, we've had it. So we're in that blender, and we're whirling around at 100 miles an hour, and I have to say, it's been a great ride, and I've tried to give you a little taste of what this community has been all about. I thank God for Fatima, my 13 years here, and I know that there are fantastic things to come for all of you. Merci à tout le monde. Merci pour m'avoir invité, Père Marc, et j'espère que vous pouvez continuer dans la voie de protéger vos belles traditions francophones, surtout dans la liturgie. Merci.